Okay. Hello everyone. We are for mains enrichment class, and as you know that in main you have to write subjective answer. So certain things you have to keep in mind regarding answer writing that I must explain. Am I audible? Please affirm so that please confirm in fact so that we can continue with this session and don't miss important initial part. So just write in chat box that am I audible or not. If yes, audible, Ajit Maji. Okay, fine. So I hope I would be audible to all because connected. So let me tell you that in answer writing, certain things you have to keep in mind before I discuss the actual topics. Like today we'll be discussing Ukraine crisis and Afghanistan crisis. Before that, let me clarify that whenever you write answer of mains, then you have to keep the tag word, whether it's comment, whether it's explain, whether it's illustrate, whether it's examine. You have to keep this thing in mind. In question on comment, which is very much strategic, you have not to elaborate what is given in the question. You have to be critical also on the given statement. You should not accept that the given statement is absolute truth. So you have to be critical as well, and you have to comment. You are being asked to comment. So you have to give your own opinion regarding it, and moreover, try to link the given statement with the present. So this is how the question of comment, which is of normally 200 words, is of a strategic importance. In explain, you have to use simplest possible language as if you are explaining to the kid. So various times it comes in other words or or otherwise. In this way, you have to explain by giving more and more examples here. And examples are best way to explain the things, and simple words, simple sentences you have to use. When illustration is there, then again examples are integral part of illustration, but in illustration you have to prove certain point through examples. Means you have to substantiate your argument or that you are putting forth. Similarly, in examine, you have to test the righteousness of the given statement and based on facts, information and data. And in certain question like in your opinion, so in opinion you can express both way, and unless it is just like universal truth, you can have both ways and express both sides. So there can be various term: illustrate, explain, comment, examine, evaluate. You have to give both positives and negatives. In brief, many of you might be knowing, but I thought it fit to give the model for a answer writing. So first thing you have to keep in mind what question is saying. Evaluate. If you have to give the both sides. In critically evaluate, you have to give the negative aspect of the given statement or cons of the given statement more. So in these this way you have to keep this in mind. Moreover, first thing is this, and then you have to pick the given question and try to fix it in the very first line, the time and space possible of the given statement. Once you fix the time and space, of the given question, it become easier. It helps in contextualization of the given question. Then now you can start with that introduction, and then you have to elaborate on the given question and pick the central point, because in many questions there are primary demands and there are secondary demands. So allocation of words is as per the primary and secondary demands. For primary demands you have to allocate more words, and for secondary demand of the question you have to allocate lesser words. Moreover, language is of course important, but you should not use flowery language. Use simplest possible language. In general studies, in English literature it may be different, in literature paper it will be different, but here you have to use simplest possible language. Then the flow also matters a lot, and it should not be haphazard. Cause effect analysis you have to keep in mind, and always keep in mind that there should be interrelation between the two statements, between the two paragraphs, and you address the issue one by one in a very systematic manner. So the proportion, the word limit, the time limit, all these are important, but I always suggest that don't overload your answer with too many facts. Rather, your UPSC is not a fact recollection test, that how much facts you have and how much data you have. So it's not a fact recollection test. In fact, it is a test of your understanding. So facts help in development of concepts, no doubt, and it helps in understanding, thinking, presentation. For example, as I said in question on comment, it is very strategic question and you are being asked to comment. So you have to not to go by the copybook style or whatever is there in written format in books only. Based on your own concept, based on your own understanding, based on your own thinking, you have to comment. So as I always say that knowledge is only first step. You have to go beyond knowledge. That going beyond knowledge involves thinking, understanding, and all those things. So now I am coming to the specifics. These are general things that everyone should keep in mind. And now I am coming to the specific. Today in international relation, the very first topic would be Ukraine crisis. So to understand any present crisis in current, first of all, you must know the historical context, because whatever we see it right now, it did not emerge all in sudden. There is a context, there is a background, there is a history. As you know, history is the study of continuity and changes. So there are many things which are continuing from past. Although in the demand of the question may be only for current and only in context of current relevance. There may be demand of the question by including historical perspective. So it is based on, answer should be based on the demand of the question, the kind of the question. So I always focus that whenever you write answer, then time and context and geographical location is very much important. So if you see the historical thing, then if you go back to 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, a brief history, then a multinational state, Soviet Union, was formed in 1917. The first successful socialist revolution took place, led by Lenin. A multinational state was formed under the leadership of Lenin and Russia. And in that multinational state, Ukraine was also part of it. So Lenin promised right of self-determination to people of all other nationalities. So people of all other nationalities happily joined Soviet Union. However, Lenin died in 1924. After that, Stalin became the Soviet president till 1953. So Stalin ruled Russia like dictator, totalitarian state, and imposed Russian culture, Russian language, Russian politicians on people of other nationalities, and their autonomy were compromised. This led to discontentment, and this also partly prepared the ground for disintegration of multinational state Soviet Union in the long run. So after that, there were various regimes like Khrushchev, like Brezhnev, like Mikhail Gorbachev, and finally there was disintegration of Soviet Union in 1991, and Russia became the successor state of Soviet Union, and it got permanent seat in the Security Council. As far as Ukraine is concerned, it was part of erstwhile Soviet Union, but after disintegration of Soviet Union, Ukraine also became an independent country, although it joined CIS, that is Commonwealth Independent States, which consist of 12 countries including Russia, and there are 3 countries in Baltic states, namely Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia. Let me clarify that in the erstwhile Soviet Union, after Russia, the most powerful and resourceful country was Ukraine. And you should not forget that Ukraine had also nuclear capabilities. But in Ukraine signed NPT 1995, Non-Proliferation Treaty 1995, and CTBT 1996, and voluntarily decided to dismantle its nuclear capabilities. So at that point of time, the whole world appreciated, although if you see the same thing from the present perspective, many will say that it was a historical blunder. Had the Ukraine possessed nuclear weapons, nobody would have dared to attack Ukraine. But you never know the future. At that point of time, as it as a matter of goodwill and peace, and Ukraine's voluntarily decided to dismantle its nuclear weapon, and it was no more a nuclear weapon, and signed also NPT and did not go for any kind of nuclear explosion. But after disintegration of Soviet Union 1991, US became the sole superpower. The world became militarily at least unipolar, and NATO was expanded after that, and NATO was expanded in 2004. The 3 Baltic states also joined NATO, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, and that alarmed Russia. Russia in 90s was too much dependent on on America and IMF. So it was asserting its European identity rather than erstwhile Eurasian identity. It was too much depending upon America, and Yeltsin, who was the president of Russia in 90s, had very friendly and cordial relation with the West because of excessive dependence on West. However, things changed, and in 2000, Putin first became president, and at that point of time, Primakov was the prime minister. And he remained president for so long, except for the time period 2008 to 2012. During that part, his close associate was the president. In nutshell, you can say for last 22 years, from 2000 onwards, Putin is ruling the roost, and Putin has emerged as a very strong statesman, politician, and he consolidated his position domestically in Russian politics. And Primakov, for the first time, proposed the triangle of India, China, and Russia to contain US unilateralism. US unilateralism was evident from Iraq War 1991 and NATO's bombardment on Yugoslavia in 1993 onwards. Then regime change in Yugoslavia, blue-eyed boy of West, Kostunuka took over, and also after 9/11, its assertion increased, and even in 2003, it attacked Iraq on the pretext of weapons of mass destruction. So ultimately, in wake of greater US unilateralism under the leadership of Putin, there was greater emphasis to contain such unilateralism, and finally BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa group came into existence formally in 2010 to contain US unilateralism. As far as Ukraine is concerned, after Baltic states joined NATO and NATO was expanding like anything, this alarmed Russia, because although formally Cold War was over, but the mindset of Cold War was not over. In fact, still we have regional Cold Wars, and Russia was willing to bounce back. It is still the largest country of the world. It is very much resourceful. West and Germany and other European countries are heavily depending upon Russian petroleum and that of natural gas, and militarily so strong. And in 21st century, it wanted it's improvised economy by supplying military hardware to various countries, including India, Pakistan, and so on. Moreover, its closeness with China also posed an indirect threat to NATO, and NATO was not wind up, and in fact, it was expanded. As far as Ukraine is concerned, Ukraine also expressed its willingness to join NATO, which further alarmed Russia, because Putin repeatedly said that West has neglected our genuine concern over our security, and as the way in which NATO's tentacles is expanding, it is dangerous for Russia. Given in this, if you see the situation, then Russia has NATO has deployed intermediate range and short range missiles also in on the territory of its allies, including Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, which were earlier part of Soviet Union. So Russia perceived it expansionist, and Russia also considered it that this expansion would be threatening Russian national security. So in 2008 onwards, the talks were going on, because for getting membership of NATO, various criteria and conditions have to be fulfilled. But those talks were not being concluded. The major development which is very much relevant for Ukraine was in 2014. In 2014, the southern part of Ukraine, Crimea has majority Russian population of Russian origin, and Russia always believed that it should be naturally its part. And in 2014, Russia invaded and annexed Crimea. If you see from the angle of international laws, it is clear breach of collective security, because Ukraine is now a sovereign independent country and Crimea was part of it. So it was breach of territorial integrity. However, there could not be any resolution against Russia in Security Council, because Russia itself is a permanent member of Security Council, having veto power. So Russia was punished in a different way by West. The Russia which was included in G7 in 90s to make it G8 was expelled from it. So sanctions were also put against Russia. This further infuriated Russia, expelled Russia from G7, G8 in fact. So G7 is the group of most industrialized countries of the world, which includes America, Canada, Germany, England, Italy, Japan. So Russia was inducted in 1990s, and it could vote only in economic matters, not in political matters. But that too, after Crimean annexation, Russia was expelled, and sanctions were put on Russia. As you know already that whenever West is going for more and more sanctions against either Russia or China, you see the Trump trade war with China, this further prompt or this bring China and Russia together, because that is a common fear factor, or that is they had the common mindset of Western threat. Even West is having a mindset of threat from Russia and China, because Russia for so long during Cold War was the rival of America. Even though in 90s it switched to democracy and it switched to capitalist market economy, But national interest remains there. In earlier cases also you will be seeing that the way in which Russian plane was targeted by Turkey, this infuriated Putin. So as Turkey was part of NATO, so Russia could not take direct military action against it. So these are all context. And moreover, if you see the developments in Afghanistan, then traditionally India, Russia and Iran supported Northern Alliance, while traditionally Pakistan and America supported Taliban and Pashtun groups. Although the things changed after 9/11 and attack on Afghanistan. So on various issues, you will find the divergences, be it regional security issues, be it global issues, or be it the historical mindset, or be it the new Cold War or regional tensions, or be it the equation of China. Because as far as India is concerned, India is part of both Quad and BRICS. India is going for tough balancing act. But as far as China is concerned, it has totally different political system, single party communist system. So naturally, uh, the mistrust between China and that of democratic West or capitalist West would be more. And Russia is willing to bounce back, and it is asserting more and more in international affairs. So even after sanctions 2014, it could not deter Russia, and it brought both China and Russia closer. And that too was catalyzed by the trade war of Trump against China. But in 2021, the things escalated as massive buildup started, as separatists who were supported by Russia were further targeting another province which is neighboring to that of separatists were targeting this portion. So in this context, you can see the map here also. So in this context, Russian support to the separatist further was seen as a threat, and America itself warned that Russia is going to invade, although Russia was always in denial mode that this is only for security, although 1 lakh troops were deployed. And finally in February, there was full-fledged attack on Ukraine, and this is great threat to the whole world. The economic reason for Russian attack on Ukraine is that in 2015, Russia proposed a Eurasian Economic Community that will include both Russia and Ukraine for common market in that region. By that, Russia will get access to Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea easily, and that was not accepted by Ukraine. That is the economic reason for attack of Russia on Ukraine. Security reason is expansion of NATO. Political reason is, of course, rivalry between the America and Russia, because Russia after 1991 is not a superpower, but still a major power, still a nuclear power. This is still a resource-rich country. It's still a military power. And on various occasions, including S-400, America repeatedly warned sanctions against even India if it procured it from Russia. In 90s, you will see on the issue of cryogenic engine, there was tussle. So we will have to discuss Indian context, because ultimately you are going to appear in Indian civil services. So most of the questions are in relation to Indian context, Indian stand, Indian impact on India. So in IR, everything ultimately you have to see ultimately you have to see also in terms of impact on India. So Operation Ganga, and large number of Indian students were rescued because India has this stated foreign policy, be it Operation Rahat, Operation Ganga, or so many operations are there where Indians, people of Indian origin have been rescued. However, this this war is quite prolonged, which was not expected by the West. Initially, Zelensky wanted West to directly intervene and militarily intervene, because uh, Zelensky also expressed that we have been left at lurch, and West is not coming for our rescue. It assured all kind of security help, but we are just helpless. Even the resolution which was brought in General Assembly against this invasion, India was very cautious, and India did not support the resolution and abstained from the resolution, because India is having SP relation with Russia, a strategic partnership, special privileged strategic partnership, SP relation. So Indo-Russia relationship on a very higher plane, time-tested relationship, historically trusted, and number one supplier. You can say so many areas of cooperation between India and Russia. But here our topic is not Indo-Russia relationship. So this is in context of Ukraine. Definitely, it will put India in dilemma, because on one hand there is a principle of collective security. On one hand, India has a consistent image of supporting UN and collective security. On the other hand, there is a friendly relation with Russia which India cannot sacrifice and compromise in any case. So ultimately, India did not favor the resolution which was sponsored and which was brought by Ukraine and West. And more hard sanctions were put against Russia. But surprisingly, Russia was this time well prepared and was expecting such sanctions, because this invasion was not done randomly. There was careful calculation. Putin thought that West has no habit to deal with the prolonged war. So prolonging the war, although initially it was said that lakhs of crores Russia is losing in the share market, investors will not come into Russia, and all those things were being said. But at the same time, there was a careful calculation that West will never burn its hand by directly intervening or militarily intervening in this matter. Although West is providing military hardware, logistic support, and other things, but ultimately this is not leading to any economic benefit to the West. In fact, it is loss to the West, which Russia targeted. Moreover, by this war, Russia is willing to give message to other erstwhile Soviet countries, including that of Belarus or Georgia or Moldova or other Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, all these countries. Their message is loud and clear that if the powerful country like Ukraine can be attacked, then others can be also attacked if the Russian concern for its security and expansion of NATO is not being taken into account. So context, as far as India is concerned, is it was definitely in dilemma, but it had to take the stand, and we took the stand. In General Assembly, we did not vote against Russia. We in fact abstained. So neither voting against nor voting in favor. So I hope that was a right decision, given the Indo-Russian relationship as PSP, and given our principled concern on collective security. And India always favor political negotiated settlement and negotiations. India always want that diplomacy should be given a fair chance, which is a consistent stand of India even in disputes relating to it. We have a standard a stand that we want peaceful, political, negotiated settlement of all outstanding disputes. So that standard line India took in this crisis as well, in this invasion as well. However, if we see that its impact, Ukraine crisis, its impact on the whole world also to be seen, because because of the prolonged war, the oil prices, the prices of gases are going up. Although Russia reciprocated and provided uh, oil at discounted rates to India, but this is for short term. In long term, the energy prices have gone up. This, and India is 85% of petroleum is imported, and only 15% of our needs we are able to produce. So definitely, in recent past, you might have seen that hikes in petroleum prices, hikes in natural gases, and more focus on renewable sources of energy, and all those things in India is also seen, because India energy security is so important. And if you see in recent past, the food shortage, global food shortage is also attributed due to this prolonged war, because this prolonged war is not only affecting Russia and only Ukraine, it's affecting the whole world. Global food supply chain is also being affected. The turbulence also affects the supply of natural gas and petroleum. Germany is heavily depending upon natural gas supplied by Russia. Russia is the largest LNG, liquefied natural gas producer of the world. And uh, this has ill affected all, and it has also ill affected the investor sentiments across the world. And this causes loss to almost each and every country in the world, including that of Russia. Because you see, you might be seeing that so many warplanes of Russia were targeted successfully by Ukraine. The Russian troops stormed in the capital Kiev, and civilians were coming out for the protest, and Ukraine banned the migration of population of age group, young age population. And we see that this has created a refugee problem as well, because in order to save the life, people have no other way but to go to other countries to take the refuge. So in neighboring countries also, it is creating tension and demographic problem. So this is all about this Ukraine crisis. If any question you want to ask, any specific, then you can ask. I hope I have discussed in a very elaborate manner. So any question on it comes, then you will be in position to solve, including that of impact on India, or context with India, or historical perspective, or present perspective, or in the future to come. Because ultimately, in future, from historical experience also, we have seen that ultimately everything has to, even after war, there has to be talks. Even to prevent wars, we have to have, must have talks. There is a question from Rishikesh, sir, what will be the stand of Russia over Finland and Sweden as they are going to join NATO? First of all, let me tell you that Finland and Sweden, they are Scandinavian countries. They were not part of erstwhile Soviet Union, but the expansion of NATO is of course cause of concern for Russia, because Western countries are trying to pressurize Russia, and Russia is retaliating more and more. We see that earlier NATO was expanding since 90s, and also Ukraine expressed its willingness to join NATO. This was the catalyst, this was the provocation due to which Russia attacked them. But Russia has only chance to Only chance, Russia is knowing it very well that if it attacks any country which is non-NATO country or non-P5 country, then Western world will not go for direct head-on military collision. This is the calculation of Russia. Had it not been there, they would not have invaded in such a manner to Ukraine by blatantly violating the international law. So definitely they are of a strategic importance. If you see the geographical location of Finland and Sweden also, they are of a strategic importance. Russian interest in northern Arctic region is also related with these countries, Russia and Finland, Finland and Sweden, and they are also significant in terms of strategic and strategic concern and security concern, because in international politics you will be seeing the policy of encirclement. Means you have to pressurize some country, you have to go for encirclement, and if Russia is retaliating, then through Finland and Sweden they will be consolidating their position. There is another question: when UNSC becomes paralyzed, how many votes are required in UNGA2 for sending UN peacekeeping? You know already this, that United Nations Security Council is meant to enforce the decision of United Nations. And if you recall 1956 Suez Canal crisis, when England and France, who were permanent members of Security Council, they themselves attacked Egypt, and lead was taken by Israel to annex Sinai Peninsula. Then at that point of time, United Nations Security Council was paralyzed. So uniting for peace resolution was passed by 2/3 majority of General Assembly in 1956, asking Israel to vacate Sinai Peninsula. But let me tell you that UN peacekeeping force, as you know, as per UN Charter, peacekeeping, peacemaking, peace enforcement. So peacekeeping is to insulate warring groups with the consent of the parties. Peace enforcement without the consent of the parties. And peacemaking is a long-term process which involves talks, political dialogues, economic revival and all those things. So in this context, the 2/3 majority will represent international public opinion. If you see in 1956, no resolution of Security Council was passed, because in 50s on more and more issues Security Council was paralyzed, be it Korean War, be it Suez Canal crisis. And in 60s Security Council was more effective because more and more issues were related to non-P5 countries. So when there is direct stake or involvement or interest of P5 countries, then Security Council is more paralyzed. When the issue is not directly affecting them, then Security Council is more successful. So this is how you can see that. There is another question. Okay, so why Ukraine not withdraw their membership from NPT and CTBT? Okay, it's now too late. Let me tell you first of all that North Korea did it. North Korea signed CTBT in 1996 and withdrew in 2003 when America attacked Iraq. But just withdrawing from NPT and CTBT at the midst of the war will not automatically lead to their weapon capabilities, because even North Korea, when after withdrawing from in 2003, conducted its nuclear test in 2007, 4 years down the line. So just merely withdrawing it will be leading to international condemnation and will not lead to any tangible benefit in the given war. So this can be one of the possibility. By this, rather than going on North Korean route, they can directly procure or get help from Western world in a clandestine manner. But that will put West also on spot, because Western countries have signed NPT and CTBT. and any unauthorized transfer of nuclear technology will further promote proliferation and will threaten the nuclear war. At least even in Russia is prolonging the war but not using nuclear weapon, because it's knowing that the moment nuclear weapon is used, then it will be the catalyst for retaliation. So it's still Russia is using traditional weapons. For deterrence, nuclear weapon is the best, as India to deter China also went for weaponization in 1998 onwards, Pokhran 2. But at the midst of the war, I don't think that that will be a prudent step. It may be a possibility. Okay. Another
Good
question.
evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, with respect to India's stance on global platform, like now, even with respect to Ukraine crisis or so, or any other crisis for that matter,
Hmm.
sir, in the past as well, we followed the policy of non-alignment, what today this India government is calling strategic autonomy or kind of things. So then how wise it is that we are not taking any sides, or we are still being neutral when the power tactics are now shifting or so. And when today when we are trying to be neutral, aren't we in a subtle way trying to support Russia somewhere?
Uh, in fact, this is not a new thing. Non-alignment movement is not to align with any major power or superpower. Alliances, cooperation with all, and cooperation with all, alliance with none. What to talk of military alliance? But as I said earlier, that principally, theoretically, India should have supported anti-Russian resolution, as it is a clear and blatant breach of collective security, as a sovereign country has been attacked. But in real politics, you have to see your national interest. The, as I said, Indo-Russian relationship is SPSP, spatial, privileged, strategic partnership. Still, it is the number one arms supplier to India. Still, we have time-tested relationship, and in various areas, including recent past, S-400, missile defense, which is so important for India, or AK-2 226 assault rifles. All these deals will be jeopardized, which is vital for our own security. So we cannot afford, in fact, to blatantly support Ukraine. In fact, the other way around also, you see that we cannot oppose the resolution of Ukraine or West outrightly, because we have 2+2 agreement with America, with Japan, with Australia. We are in Quad. Indo-US relationship is on an unprecedented high level. So India has been benefited by this neutral stand. So, and India has a track record of moderation. And moreover, if you see practically, we cannot afford to jeopardize our relationship either with the sole superpower America or with the Russia, because the various gaps which were there in Indo-Russian defense deals or ties were filled up by America, like joint naval exercises, like 2+2 agreement, Limova, Sismova, Bika. There are various agreements which India has participated in, and Am I audible now? Because there was a break in linkage and okay. One student Sheikh has said yes, sir. So others will be also listening. So regarding the question earlier, I said that India cannot afford to take one side because we have SP-SP relationship with Russia and we have 2+2 agreement with America and large number of Indo-American community, and it is the one of the largest trading partner of India, and we have huge potential of trade and economic ties and political cooperation in all areas, means what not. If you see high tech, if you see robotics, if you see ensuing technologies in which a space program, nuclear program, and a nuclear energy program, LNG, petroleum, means what not, in every area. We were reducing our dependence on Middle East oil, so we procure more oil and petroleum from America and Russia both. So we cannot afford to jeopardize our this relationship because of this war, and this will not be also prudent. This will be also not. This will be also departure from our earlier policy. So status quo is best for us. Some the critics may say principally wrong. You are only going for national interest, but ultimately in international politics, national interest is paramount and ultimate. One more question was there. One more question was there. Yeah, there was a question, I hope. When UNSC become okay, that question I have already answered. Then there is a question that, sir, as India is trying to become the permanent member of United Nations Security Council, sir, how it will be possible for us to permanent member? Let me tell you that India for the first time formally staked claim for permanent seat in 1994 alone. But soon it realized that its claim was not seriously taken. And this is the reason why in 21st century we formed G4, which includes India, Germany, Japan, and Brazil, to collectively seek UN reforms in general and expansion in both permanent and non-permanent category of Security Council to make it more democratic, more legitimate, and to reflect the existing reality of the world, as at the time of foundation only 251 members were there in General Assembly and 5 plus 6 members were there in 1965, 5 permanent and 10 permanent non-permanent members, but now 4 times increase in membership in General Assembly, but such corresponding increase is not there in Security Council. So regarding India's claim for permanent seat, there are so many things which are positive. We are largest democracy, first 1/6 of humanity, we represent third world country, we have track record of not waging war against any country, we have track record of following UN rules, we have moreover so many points are in favor that even if you go for a criteria of nuclear weapon capability, now after 98 we are nuclear weapon capable country, we are a huge country, we have huge demographic dividend, so many pluses are there for permanent seat. But for procedure for getting permanent seat is, first United Nations agree on the principles for expansion of permanent and non-permanent category. That has not been agreed. First that will be agreed, and then it has to be passed both by UNSC as well as General Assembly. So strategic silence of China is a cause of concern, because Russia was the first P5 country to support our candidature, then France, then England, and in 2010 Obama also said that India should get permanent seat in Security Council, should although some said that you should have said must. Anyway, but China's strategic silence, and if China at last point of time is going for veto, India will not be able to get permanent seat. And moreover, in America also, it is being believed that candidature of Brazil is better than that of India, because Brazil signed NPT and CTBT, which India did not. So there can be opinion, counter opinion, and arguments, and there are coffee group also formed in reaction to G4. Pakistan, the neighbor of India; Italy, the neighbor of Germany; the Argentina, neighbor of Brazil; and South Korea, neighbor of Japan. They are also, this coffee group is also halting the what we are pursuing through G4. So they are opposing the India's claim for permanent membership. But India want overall reforms in United Nations. This is a principled stand, and the existing realities of the world should be reflected in Security Council as well, and it should be more democratized, and it should not be monopolized by the only major powers. There is another question. Can there be another Russian revolution domestically for regime change in Russia, as West sanctions are affecting Russian people? Yeah, this is a very interesting question that you have asked, because what we have seen, this is not a arbitrary question. What we have seen earlier also, that whenever a regime is anti-America or anti-West, there is always attempt for regime change, be it Saddam Hussein, be it Gaddafi, be it Chavez of Venezuela, or be it this Milosevic, Slobodan Milosevic in Yugoslavia, and Kostunica became the president after bloodless revolution. So in these countries, if you compare with Russia, the situation is different, because Russia is a major power. Russia and Putin has already proved and established supremacy of his leadership over last 22 years. It's not that Putin got 76% of votes in last election, and he remained the undisputed leader elected till 2026. So regime change would be quite difficult and dangerous as well, because see the personality of Putin. If you see the way in which he pursue the things, if there is threat to his own position, then he may take it personal. If Saddam Hussein could take it personal, because 1991 Gulf War became personalized war between George H. Bush and Saddam Hussein. So even a country like Iraq, statesmen can become such. Then Russia is a major power, is a big military power, and it's the largest country, and such possibility I don't see, because the way in which Russia has Putin has consolidated his position. Although nothing can be ruled out in politics, and we have such examples, as I referred so many examples. So in such hypothetical question, nobody know the future. Even UPSC members will not know the future, that whether there will be regime change in Russia or not. Some conspiracy theory says that Putin is having blood cancer and he is going for show off of all those things at the last leg of his life. Some various conspiracy theories are going around, but we have not to buy all those things, because in UPSC you have to be balanced. You have to give other examples, and you have to give the possibilities, pros and cons, and you cannot take a firm stand on such question. Even if such questions are being asked, you cannot be be sure about regime change or not. Okay. Okay. कल के I think today enough. Where tomorrow we'll be discussing Afghanistan crisis, so you can bring so many questions, even not confining yourself, because query of every student may be different. Their difficulty areas would be different. Their weaknesses would be different. Hit your weaknesses hard, and this class is meant for it. Thank you.